A review of findings appointment is an appointment where we evaluate your laboratory. I typically, for most of our cases, unless you're an acute case or a chronic case, we're going to do a review of findings in the beginning, and then we'll do a review of findings in 6 months, and we'll do a review of findings at year end. So there's a total of 2 other review of findings in your program. It's important to realize that I have scheduled those out for a reason, because it depends on where you are in your health process and how often it takes for us to look at those labs. Biochemical markers don't quickly move, and so we have to achieve certain parameters, or we have to achieve certain milestones in order for us to run new labs. So I'd like to be able to clear certain things so that when we do the review, when we do a new lab set, that it's shifted enough in the biochemistry that it's going to show up as something different, or it's going to show up where I need it to show up. So sometimes that can be a little confusing. Genetic panels do not count for a review of findings, meaning that typically you're going to need a separate review of findings appointment for that. Also, functional labs technically don't fall under the review of lab findings. So those are kind of one-off. So if you have a review of findings on your account, I can use that. Otherwise, I can use a general visit to review it, or sometimes we just don't have that time. A review of findings typically is 45 minutes long. So if you have a question as to whether there's going to be a fee to review the lab, please let me know. Sometimes I review the lab, but we don't need to sit down and review the lab, meaning that I'm always, like, let's say if I'm working with your endocrinologist is going to be running labs, or your rheumatologist is going to be running labs, and they're going to be sending those labs to me, and I'm going to be looking at it. However, we don't always need to have a formal review. When we do have a review of findings, I always give you access to your lab report in your on-patient portal, or if you request it, I can give you a printed copy of it. You're entitled to 1 printed copy. If you need repeat copies, there is an additional fee for that, just because they are color copies, and so the paper and the ink do cost us a little bit. We want to make sure that you have all of the information that you need, so we can upload it at any time and you can have access. We don't tend to email lab reports. We like to keep it within the patient portal. It's just too much to try to keep track of when we're emailing them and then not emailing them, et cetera, et cetera. So we do try to keep it within our secure, HIPAA secure patient portal. Our emails are also HIPAA secured as well. We just want to limit, because we have to transfer the information over from email into our EHR. And so sometimes that process is very time consuming. So we do like to keep things in there. If you want me to review family members, lab work, there is an additional fee for that. So just so that you're aware of that, but we do look at both basic as well as functional labs as well. So anytime you see review of findings, we want to make sure that you have gotten your labs drawn. And so we have reviews. We will call you to reschedule if we haven't gotten the lab in time, or the labs weren't drawn in time, et cetera. So at least have them done a week in advance, and that gives us time for the lab company to fax them over, as well as us to receive them. We typically work with and send you to LabCorp, which is an off-site lab drawing facility. We also can hire a phlebotomist to come in and draw labs, but it's very important that you keep that appointment because we don't typically have a phlebotomist in our office, that we use them as contracts. So please make sure to keep that appointment, or cancel it or reschedule it within 48 hours so that we can notify them to let them know that they don't need to come in. A lot of our functional labs are going to be done in our office, just because there's a lot of stipulation. Some of our functional labs as well have preps involved with it, so make sure that you follow those prep instructions if you're provided them. And that should pretty much cover your review of findings. We do those, like I said, about once every 6 months. In chronic care, we do them once every 3 months, and then acute care cases, we're going to do them pretty often, probably once a month, if not more, because they'll be in either active chemo or radiation, and so we'll need to be evaluating them on a continual basis.